Maya Johnson had suffered weeks of Derek Mitchell's harassment at Westfield High. The bully saw only another quiet black transfer student, someone who learned to keep her head down and accept whatever powerful boys like him dished out. Then one afternoon in the parking lot, Derek decided words were no longer enough. The slap rang out across the asphalt, followed by his smug laughter and the cheers of his friends. What Derek was unable to see beneath Maya's diligent silence was 8 years. Muay Thai training, fists turned into guns by her Marine father, who had taught her to protect herself. Derek believed she was soft. He was mistaken, and Maya Johnson was going to teach him precisely what occurred where predators tragically underestimated. Pray before we proceed, comment where in the world you are commenting from, and subscribe, because tomorrow's tale is one you won't want to miss. Maya Johnson pushed the glass doors of Westfield High School open, her backpack slung across one shoulder. The hallways lay ahead of her like a maze of shiny floors and lockers painted school colors that she didn't know yet. Students huddled in their own cliques looking at her with a relaxed interest reserved for newcomers. You lost, sweetheart. Maya's head swiveled toward the speaker, a sandy-haired boy who stood tall in a lacrosse jersey, flanked by 3 other boys wearing the same loose comfort that came with sitting at the head of the social chain. Just getting my bearings, Maya applied her tone. Even Derek Mitchell, he pushed away from the lockers and held out his hand. Captain of the lacrosse squad, I make it my business to greet new students, particularly ones as exotic as you. Maya stared at his raised hand, but never took. Maya Johnson, and I'm not exotic, I'm just black. Derek's friends laughed, but Derek's smile never faltered. Feisty, I like that. Where'd you switch from? Columbus, big city girl. How well things work differently here in Westfield, more traditional values, if you know what I mean. His gaze went down her body in a way that made her skin crawl. Lucky for you, I'm something of a tradition myself. Been here since kindergarten. My family practically built the school. How nice for you. Maya shifted her feet in preparation to walk away. Hold up. Derek moved sideways in front of her, blocking her path. I'm trying to be friendly here, show you around, introduce you to people who count. You don't want to make enemies on your first day. I don't want to make friends either. One of Derek's friends, a boy with acne scars, a stocky one, laughed. She's got attitude, Derek. Maybe she needs to learn some manners. Maya's jaw clamped shut. She'd had boys like this before in 3 different schools and states. They always thought they controlled whatever room they were in. Listen, Derek said, his voice sinking to what he likely believed was suave. I could be real good. Do you take care of you like in the old days? You know what I mean. His friends laughed loud. The corridor around them grew quieter, other students slowing down to see the spectacle. Maya felt the now familiar relief of being the only black face in a room full of white ones, waiting to see what she'd do when she'd been put in her place. I know exactly what you mean, Maya said, her voice piercing through their laughter, and I'm not interested. She walked around Derek, but he stepped again, his arm striking out to lean against the lockers, trapping her against them. Come on now. Don't be like that. I'm trying to help you out here. New girl likely hasn't got loads of mates. It could do with someone to guide her around. Maya glanced up at him, seeing how his friends had stood to cut off any civil ways of escape. She'd been in this situation before, but there was something about Derek's grin that made her feel sick. It wasn't just predatory. It was called like he really thought she ought to be thankful that he was paying attention. Put your arm down, she told him softly, or what? Derek moved closer. You're going to report the principal. My dad's on the school board, has been for 15 years. They will not believe some upset transfer student about a Mitchell. The bell rang, echoing through the hall. Students moved towards their classes, but Derek and his friends not moved. This conversation isn't over, Derek said, finally putting down his arm. Welcome to Westfield, Maya Johnson. You have a good time at our town. As they turned away, Maya overheard one of them mutter, she's going to be a blast to break, and Maya lingered there for a moment and watched them merge with the crowd. She changed schools 6 times in 4 years due to her mother's employment. She learned to read people fast. This wasn't mere teenage posturing, this was something sinister. She unfolded her class schedule and began heading to her first period. Other students made her a wide berth, now their eyes wide with curiosity. Without looking, the long word would travel fast about the new girl who'd gotten into Derek Mitchell's face on her first day. Maya spotted her classroom and moved quietly inside, sitting in the back corner where she could watch the door as the teacher started to take roll. She thought of Derek's words, old-fashioned values, the good old days. She'd heard that kind of veiled language before. Her father had shown her how to punch when she was 10 after her first Muay Thai lesson. Never begin a fight, he told her, but always be prepared to complete one. Asterisk glancing around at her new peers, Maya felt like she'd already have to recall that tip sooner than she'd desire. Development 1900 words revised. The harassment began the next morning. Maya was grabbing books out of her locker when Derek materialized next to her, leaning against the locker to the side, like he had a right there. Morning, gorgeous, sleep well, dream of me. Maya didn't glance at him. Move, come on, don't be unfriendly. I brought you an offering of peace. He held out a banana. Thought you might be hungry. His friends appeared at his back, laughing. Maya slammed the locker door and strode away, but Derek tagged along. Hey, where you going? I'm attempting to be nice here. Maya continued on, but Derek sidestepped into her path to block the way. For first period students in the hallway slowed down, sensing drama. You know, most girls would be appreciative of the attention Derek Mitchell does not talk to everyone. Lucky me, Maya grumbled, attempting to sidestep him. Once more this time Derek did not let her go through, but she could sense his gaze on her as she moved away behind her. She heard him tell his friends, don't worry, she'll come around, they always do. By third period, Derek had discovered her schedule. He stood outside her chemistry class waiting with that same predator smile. Maya, what a coincidence, I was just walking by. Your next class is on the other side of the building, Maya said, without pausing. How do you know where my next class is? Derek fell into step beside her. You've been inquiring about me. The sweet Maya's jaw clenched. She hadn't been inquiring. She'd overheard the girls chatting about Derek's schedule at lunch. Apparently half the school knew his schedules by heart. Look, I understand, Derek went on. You're playing hard to get. It's adorable, but you should realize I always get what I want. Maya, stop it, Wicking. What makes you think I'm something you can acquire? Derek's smile hesitated for a fraction of a second before coming back full strength. Everything's for sale, sweetheart. Just gotta find the right price. The next afternoon, Derek waited by her car in the high school parking lot. Maya had used her mother's Honda for the day. Nothing flashy, but Derek stroked his hand along the hood as if he were valuing it. Nice ride, little beat up, but it's got character like its owner. Get away from my car, relax. I'm not gonna hurt it, just admiring. He stepped into her path-toed driver's door. You know I could take you to school. My Mustang's a heck of a lot nicer than this clunker. I don't need rides from you. What do you want? Then money I have lost. My dad owns 3 car lots. Derek took a step closer. Or perhaps you need protection. The school can be dangerous for strangers. Maya's hands curled into fists. Is that a threat? Just facts. Things happen to people who don't belong. Accidents, misunderstandings. Derek's voice went lower. But stay with me and nobody'll bother you. Maya unlocked her car and climbed in, but Derek had the door before she could shut it. Think about it, he said. I'll make it worth your while. The harassment grew over the week. Derek was everywhere except outside her classes in the cafeteria. By her locker, his comments became lewder, his accidental brushes more and more frequent. He'd touch her in the hallway, put his hand on her lower back when he spoke to her, stand close when she was at her locker. Maya attempted to go to the guidance counselor. First, Mrs. Patterson, I need to report an issue with another student. Counselor, a worn-out looking woman in her 50s, hardly glanced up from her paperwork. What kind of issue? A student named Derek Mitchell has been stalking me, making lewd remarks, touching me. When I asked him not to, Mrs. Patterson's pen ceased its motion. Derek Mitchell, are you absolutely sure that you're misunderstanding? Friendly advances. Derek's a good kid, star athlete on a roll, comes from a good home. He said that he could be my master like the old days. He stalks me to my car. He touches me when I ask him not to. Well, Mrs. Patterson laid down her pen and gazed at Maya for the first time. Sometimes when we're new somewhere, we can misinterpret social signals. Boys here may be more aggressive than you're used to. It's likely just his way of being friendly. Maya glared at her. Friendly? I think you should try to be less judgmental. Give Derek a chance. He's actually really nice once you know him. Mia exited the office, feeling nauseated. Meanwhile, around the school, Jake Santos observed Mia walk by his table in the library, her jaw clenched with aggravation. He recognized that face, the same look he'd had after Hish's own failed efforts to get Derek's crew reported for pushing him into lockers and referring to him as Taco. Boy, Jake had been at Westfield for 2 years since his family had relocated from El Paso. Derek and his crew had made those years hell, but Jake had learned to keep his head down, walk alternate routes through the hallways, eat lunch in corner hideaways. In Maya, he saw a person who hadn't yet learned to fade away. Part of him respected her for not backing down. Another part of him was afraid of what Derek would do to someone who kept refusing. Friday, Derek cornered Maya near the gym doors after. Last period, you've been avoiding me all week. That hurts my feelings. Good. Derek's smile grew cold. You think you're better than me, than this place. Let me tell you something, princess. You're nothing special, just another. What? Maya moved a little closer, her voice threatening. Derek's eyes seemed to shine. You know what? Don't make me say it. Maya sensed something break in her chest. Say it, I dare you. For a moment, Derek looked as if he would really do it. Then his smile crept back. It didn't make it to his eyes. Shortly, he replied softly, soon as you learn your place. Monday morning, Derek crouched with his buddies around the trophy case, a wicked grin splitting his face. Today's the day, boys. Little Miss Attitude's going to know her place. What you got planned? Asked Kyla, the acne-scarred stocky one. Public humiliation, gonna get her begging for my attention before everyone. Derek's eyes sparkled. She thinks she's better than me. Wait till she sees what becomes of girls who don't show decent respect. Dude, you're going to get in trouble. One of the lanky tall ones spoke up. For what? Flirting? My dad's on the school board, remember. Apart from it'll just seem like friendly banter to everyone observing. Derek cracked his knuckles. Time to break this. Philly and his friends glanced at each other but said nothing. They'd witnessed Derek's friendly banter before. Derek saw Maya sitting at her locker and stiffened his shoulders. Showtime. There's my girl, Derek proclaimed loudly, striding up with his typical entourage. Miss me this weekend? I'm not your girl, Maya declared without turning around. Come on, don't be shy. Everyone knows we've got something special. Derek took a step closer, his voice echoing down the hallway. Been telling everyone how exotic you are, how different. Maya shut her locker and turned to him. Stop calling me exotic. Why? It's a compliment. You're not like the basic girls here. You've got that wild, untamed thing going on. Derek's friend snickered, and Mia saw more students gathering to witness. Like beautiful animal that needs to be broken. In the hall went silent. Maya felt all eyes on her, awaiting a reaction to being equated with an animal that had to be broken. You want to know what's wild and unbridled? Maya's words were firm, but her hands were trembling with fury. Your breath. When's the last time you brushed your teeth or showered? You stink like a locker room that's been locked up all summer. Derek's smile wavered. Hey now, and talking about rudimentary, let's discuss your personality. You've got the depth of a puddle and the intellect of a brick. The only reason girls speak to you is because daddy's money can purchase you fake friends and a fake image. Derek's face was reddening. His friends shifted uneasily. Your definition of flirting is calling girls exotic creatures and speaking of the old times like you're some plantation owner. Newsflash, those times are done and they're not returning. You're just a frightened little boy who can't accept being denied. Maya moved closer, her voice increasing. You think you're scary. You think you're unique. You're nothing. You're a walking stereotype with a trust fund and daddy issues. The only remotely interesting thing about you is your car, and that's only because someone else built. The crowd had gotten bigger. Phones emerging to take Derek's photo was now red. And one more thing, I declared, her voice slicing through the silence. I wouldn't go out with you if you were the last guy on earth. I have standards, and you don't even show up on the scale. Derek just stood there for a second, his mouth opening and closing like fish. The laughter from before had long since died out. Students stared at him with faces running the gamut from shock to barely repressed amusement. Derek could feel the shame searing through his chest like acid. This wasn't the way it was meant. Go. She was meant to crack up, not fight back. His mates were looking at him, expecting him to do something. You think you're hilarious. Derek made a laugh that sounded more like a bark. You think this is finished. You just made the biggest mistake of your life. Maya turned to leave, but Derek's voice stayed behind with her. Nobody speaks to me like that. Nobody. The rest of the day, Derek fumed. Every giggle in the corridor was an affront. Every look was judgment. Be lunchtime. The video of Maya's verbal annihilation had spread across the school like wildfire. She got you, good man. Tyler cracked in an attempt to break the tension, but hey, at least shut up. Derek snapped, just shut up. Derek hardly registered his afternoon. Classes, all he could think was of Maya's voice slicing through him. Like a knife, the way students had gazed at him afterwards, the way some had actually smiled. By the time school let out, Derek's embarrassment had soured to anger. We're going. Take care of this, he said to his friends as they made their way to the parking lot. All of us, she wants to be hard. Let's see how hard she is. Maya was headed to her car when they finally caught up to her. Going somewhere? Derek demanded. We're not finished talking. Yes, we are. Maya continued walking to her car. No, we're not. Derek caught her arm and turned her around. You embarrassed in front of the entire school, made me look a fool. You didn't need my assistance with that. Derek's hold increased. You think you're so smart, so tough. Let me teach you what happens to girls who don't know their place. Maya gazed at his hand on her arm and then at his face. Let go of me. Or what? Let go of me now, Derek sneered. But there was nothing humorous about it. You're going to learn some respect. His hand flashed out and smacked her backside hard enough the noise rang out over the parking lot. His friends erupted in laughter and Derek smiled, feeling as though he'd finally re-established order. There we go, much better. For an instant everything was quiet. Derek was smiling, his friends were laughing, and a few students who had been walking to their cars had paused to look on. Maya stood there unmoving for a beat, then turned around slowly, and something in her face caused Derek's smile to falter. Big mistake, she whispered quietly. Derek opened his mouth to yell, but Maya's right hook landed square on his jaw. Before he had a chance to get the word out, the crack of contact could be heard 20 feet away. Derek's eyes rolled back and he collapsed to the asphalt like a bag of wet concrete. His friend gaped in shock for half a second before charging forward. Tyler swung first, but Maya dodged underneath his punch and jammed her knee into his solar plexus. He doubled over, gagging. Connor grabbed for her arms in an attempt to hold her back. Maya spun out of his grasp and landed an elbow to the ribs that pushed him stumbling back. The third friend, Brad, shorter and faster, was able to get a glancing blow to her shoulder before Mia's roundhouse kick landed in his stomach and sent him to the knees. The entire fight took less than 30 seconds. Mia towered over Derek's unconscious body, her chest rising and falling over the parking lot. Students were holding up their phones, filming everything. Some were cheering, others looked white with fear. Maya Johnson's security guards were coming towards them, radios squawking. Maya didn't struggle as they grabbed her arms, but kept her gaze on Derek's lifeless form. Someone call an ambulance, one guard yelled as they took Maya away. She heard another student murmur, holy crap, did you see that? She tore them to pieces. Derek was stirring, blood dripping from his mouth, his friends rising slowly from their seats, holding their wounds. The war had begun. Principal Anderson's office was like a courtroom. Maya sat in a stiff plastic chair, her mother next to her, while Anderson rummaged through papers with the enthusiasm of someone attempting to evade contact. 5 days suspension, Anderson declared without glancing up. Maya initiated physical violence against four students. That led to 1 concussion and several injuries. Honestly, she's lucky the police aren't on the scene. What about what they to her? Maya's mother, Lisa Johnson, leaned forward in her seat. That boy placed his hands on my daughter. Inappropriately witnessed testimony. Derek was just speaking with Maya when she got violent. Anderson finally glanced up, his face guarded. Neutral. There's no inappropriate contact evidence. There's video of him slapping her. Behind Lisa's voice was escalating. Several students had recorded it. I've seen the video. It indicates Maya punched Derek unprovoked. Maya glared at him unprovoked. Video I saw commences with you throwing the initial punch. Whatever led to that is hearsay. Lisa stood up. This is incredible. So Derek receives no punishment whatsoever. Derek and his friends were victims of an attack that was unprovoked. There being given medical treatment and counseling services. Anderson's tone indicated that the meeting was concluded. Maya will be serving her suspension from tomorrow morning. When she comes back, any more occurrences will mean expulsion and potential criminal charges. In the corridor outside the office, Maya's fingers were trembling with anger. They had cut the video out of all the stuff leading up to when I struck him. I know, baby. Lisa draped her arm around her daughter. We'll get through this. That night, Maya sat in the kitchen table looking at her unopened dinner. As her parents discussed quietly beside the sink, her father, Marcus Johnson, had said nothing. Since Lisa told him what occurred at school, eventually Marcus sat down opposite. Maya explained to me precisely what occurred, every nuance. Maya described the weeks of torment, Derek's growing behavior, the pointless session with the counselor, and then the altercation in the parking lot. Marcus heard without stopping, his jaw clenching. "Each detail, you did the right thing," he muttered after she finished. Marcus. Lisa cautioned from the kitchen. "No, Lisa, she did precisely what she was supposed to do." Marcus stared at Maya straight. "When somebody touches you like that after you've asked them to stop, you are absolutely allowed to protect yourself, but I'm the one who got suspended. Because boys like Derek are protected by the system always." And Marcus's words were laced with his own history, but here's the thing they don't get. You didn't just protect yourself, you sent a message to every other predator in that school. Maya felt tears prickling. "It doesn't matter. Nothing is different. Everything changed. You just don't realize it yet." Marcus reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Your grandmother would say to me, sometimes you have to fight the same battle twice before people realize you're serious. This isn't over, Maya. It's just the beginning." "What do you mean? You proved to them you can fight. Now prove to them you won't ever stop fighting." Marcus squeezed her hand. "But you can't fight alone. Find others who've been injured by this boy, construct something more than just yourself." Meanwhile, in the other part of the school, Derek sat in the nurse's office, holding an ice pack against his jaw. His father, Robert Mitchell, stood there, like a guard dog, cell phone held to his ear. "Yes, I understand the girl has been suspended," Robert was telling him, "but 5 days isn't enough. My son could have been seriously injured." "What do you mean there's video? Derek was the victim here." Derek observed his father at work, placing calls to school board members, threatening lawsuits, drawing on years of political networking. Within an hour, the official video had been removed from the school servers, replaced with edited footage that portrayed Mia as unprovoked aggressor. "Don't worry, son," Robert said after he hung up. "This will all blow over, and that girl will think twice before messing with the Mitchell again." Derek wasn't worried about Maya's punishment. He was thinking about the feel of her fist hitting his jaw, the way she'd move, like she knew exactly what she was doing. None of his friends had ever fought back before. None of them had ever knocked now. 2 days into Maya's suspension, Jake Santos was eating lunch by himself when he saw something that made his stomach drop. Derek and his crew were circling around a freshman girl near the water fountain, close enough for Jake to hear every single word. "Come on, Amy, don't be shy," Derek was saying, his jaw still mostly swollen. "I just want to talk. I need to get to class." The girl whispered, "Class can wait. We're having a conversation here." Derek edged closer, standing her against the wall. "You know what happened to the girl who was disrespectful to me? She got suspended, might even be expelled." Jake had witnessed this very scene being acted out dozens of times in the last 2 years. Different victims, same predator, but something about seeing it happen again so soon following the suspension of Maya made him feel ill. "Please, I just want to go to class." "That's not how this works," Derek said. "You show me some respect, maybe smile a little, and then we can discuss releasing you." Jake stood up instinctively. "Hey," Derek scowled at the interruption. "What do you want, Taco Boy? Leave her alone." Derek laughed. "Or what you going to call your girlfriend, Maya?" "Oh wait, she's suspended for being violent." Thud. Jake's hands were shaking, but he didn't back down. "Just leave her alone. You know what, you're right." Derek stepped away from the freshman. "Amy can go, but you and I need to have a conversation." The freshman girl fled without looking back. Derek's friends moved to surround Jake, who suddenly realized he'd made a terrible mistake. "You think because Maya sucker punched me, that makes you tough?" Derek grabbed Jake by the shirt and slammed him into the lockers. "Let me tell you something about that girl. Was lucky it would not happen again." Jake struggled to break free, but Derek's grip only grew stronger. "And if I hear about you talking your trash to anyone about what happened, you'll be sorry you didn't just stay whatever border town you slunk out of that afternoon." Jake home-walked with a black eye and a split lip, Derek's threats ringing in his ears. But he also home-walked with something else, a phone number he'd scribbled down off the substitute teacher's desk. Maya answered on second ring. "Maya, this is Jake Santos. We don't really know one another, but we have to talk." "What happened to your voice?" You sound like you're crying. Jake stroked his puffy lip. Derek happened. Look, I know you're suspended. When you return, we have to meet. There are other kids who've been enduring Derek and his crew for years. How many others? Jake considered all the kids. He'd witnessed being cornered in the hallways, bullied in the bathrooms, threatened into silence. More than you realize, and after what you did to him. After witnessing someone finally stand up to Jake's voice, well, stronger individuals are willing to hear. Maya remained silent for a while, recalling her father's words on creating something. Later, where do you want to meet? Behind the gym. First day you're back, and we'll decide on what comes next. After hanging up, Jake stood before his reflection. In his bedroom mirror for the first time in 2 years, he did not avert his gaze from the bruises. Rather, he began making a list of names. Every child he'd seen Derek's group target, every student who'd been too afraid to stand up. The war was on the verge of becoming greater. Maya's first day again at Westfield being like entering the enemy's camp. Students gazed as she walked by, some admiring, some in fear. Word had gotten around that she had been suspended, but so had rumors of Derek's continued misbehavior in her absence. Behind the gym, Jake Santos stood waiting with 3 other students. Maya didn't know his split lip was healed, but the black eye was still yellowing around the edges. You came? Jake asked, relief in his tone. You said there were others. Maya glanced at the small group. Them. A slender girl with a short brown haircut moved forward. I'm Emma Rodriguez. Derek and his pals trapped me in the bathroom last month, insulted me, threatened to flush my head in the toilet if I reported. Marcus Washington, stated a lanky black sophomore. They've been stealing my lunch money since freshman year. Yesterday, they pushed me into the trophy case and informed everybody I was attempting to pilfer something. Third student, a pale boy with thick glasses, whispered almost inaudibly his introduction. Bench. Chen they do mine. Make me do their homework. Maya's mind rang with her father's words. Build something bigger than just you. How many others? He asked. Jake pulled out a folded sheet of paper. I've been making a list. Kids who've been targeted, kids who've been threatened, kids who just keep their heads down because they're scared. He handed her the paper. There are at least 20 names here. That's just the ones I know about. Maya unfolded the list and read the names. Some she knew from classes, others were strangers. They can't suspend all of us. That's what I thought, Jake said, but we have to have a plan. We can't just go around punching. At random, Emma interrupted, her voice more assertive now. What if we don't punch first? What if we just stop running away any longer? What do you mean? Ben asked. I mean, when they pin you down, you stand firm. When they try to intimidate you, you don't turn back. When they touch you, Emma stared at Maya, you fight back. Maya nodded hesitantly. My dad taught me some things. Basic self-defense. I could demonstrate to you. You do them, Marcus said. Derek's not going to quit. The school's not going to assist us, so we assist ourselves. Maya folded up the list and stuffed it into her pocket. But everyone needs to realize once we begin this, there's no turning back. They're going to come at us more aggressively. They're already coming at us, Jake said. At least this way we strike back. Maya regarded each of them in turn. Okay. We meet here every day after school. I'll show you what I know. But remember, we're not initiating fights, we're ending them over. The next 3 days, their group expanded. Word spread widely among the school's subterranean network of victims and outcast students who had been keeping their suffering silent, began to find themselves at the meetings behind the gym. Maya instructed them in basic blocks how to break free from grabs, where to strike to inflict maximum damage. She taught Emma how to utilize her speed to keep herself out of reach. She taught Marcus how to utilize his height advantage. She helped Ben overcome his aversion to physical contact, the most significant. Maya instructed them on Thursday is tone to fight fair. They don't fight fair, so neither do we. You go for eyes, throat, knees, whatever it takes to get away safe, Jake observed, as she showed him a knee strike, and he saw Maya was turning into something more than another victim who lashed back. She was turning into their leader. In the meantime, Derek had picked up on the whispers. Students who'd scurried when they caught sight of him were now making eye contact. Students who'd been easy prey were walking differently, standing straighter. Something's happening, he said to Tyler as they stood by the lockers Friday afternoon. These losers are behaving strange. How like they aren't afraid anymore. The freshman girl, Emma, she didn't even think when I walked by her yesterday. Tyler shrugged. Perhaps they're just adjusting to you being back. But Derek knew it wasn't that simple. He based his whole image on fear. And fear was a fragile thing once people weren't afraid anymore. Everything changed. We need to send a message, Derek said. Remind everyone what happens when you don't give proper respect. What kind of message? Derek's eyes roamed up and down the hallway until they found Jake Santos, who was heading toward the exit with determination. Instead of his normal nervous huffle, the type that leaves a scar as the weekend drew near. Both sides were ready for what all could sense impending. Maya's squad had swelled to 15 students, all learning how to fight, all prepared to protect themselves, each other. Derek's squad had swelled, signing up older students and even some alumni who still lingered around the school battle lines. Were being informed Maya spent the weekend drilling combinations in her backyard, her father sitting on the porch. You sure about this course? Marcus asked between drills. Maya wiped the sweat from her forehead and glanced back at the house, where her mother was pacing by the kitchen window, fretting sick about what was to come. No, Maya said truthfully. It's the only road that goes somewhere good. Monday morning couldn't get here soon enough. Monday morning presented the first real challenge. Jake was making his way to his locker when Derek and Tyler cornered him by the stairwell. Same spot they jumped him dozens of times before. But today Jake didn't avert his eyes. Well, Derek said, edging closer. Look, who thinks he's hard? Now, I'm not looking for trouble, Jake had said, but he hadn't backed down to badly trouble. Had found you. Derek pushed Jake hard against the concrete wall. I hear you've been speaking to people, making lists. That true? Jake could feel his heart racing. But Maya's words came back into his mind. Don't I'd fairly go for whatever it takes to get out safe. I don't know what you're talking about. Derek jerked Jake's shirt out and pushed him forward, then shoved him back into the wall. Don't lie to me, Taco Boy. You and that psycho girl have been recruiting losers for your little club. Let go of me, or what? Derek laughed. You going to call your? Jake's knee shoved up into Derek's groin with all his might. Derek doubled over and gasping, Jake broke free and ran into the main hallway where teachers began him. Derek wheezed, but Jake was already gone. 20 minutes later, during first period, Emma Rodriguez was exiting the bathroom when 3 senior girls cut her off. Maya had warned them that Derek might bring reinforcements, but Emma hadn't counted on this. You're Emma, right? The 2 leads, a blonde cheerleader named Brittany, smiled coldly. I'm friends with Derek. All right, said Emma, attempting to step around them. Not so fast. Brittany stepped forward to block her again. Derek told me you've been telling lies about him. That's not very nice. I haven't said anything that isn't true. See, that's the issue. Truth is relative. Brittany moved forward, and Derek's family has been kind to this school. Your family? Nobody even knows who you are. Emma felt the old fear rising in her throat. But then she recalled Maya's words about standing your ground. Move. Emma said firmly. Excuse me, I said move. I have to get to class. Brittany's malevolent. You. Little Emma didn't even give her time to finish. She shoved past Brittany hard enough to have the cheerleader backing up into the sink. You're going to regret this, Brittany yelled as Emma strode away. By lunch, both stories had spread around. Maya sat with her expanding crew in a cafeteria corner, glancing over at Derek's table across the room. They're recruiting. Marcus spoke softly. I saw Derek talking with some of the football players in pay. How many? Maya replied, perhaps 6 or 7. Big guys. Ben appeared terrified. What if they attack us all together? Then we stick together, Maya said. Nobody walks alone. Buddy system everywhere across the cafeteria. Derek was actually recruiting his own army, his jaw still throbbing from Jake's knee. And the shame seethed worse than the pain. I want them isolated. Derek instructed the football players he'd hired pick them off one by one, show the rest of the school what happens. You mess with us. What about the girl? Asked Chad, a veteran linebacker, the one who began all this. Derek's eyes scanned the room. She was sitting with her back to the wall so she could observe the whole cafeteria. Smart, save her for last, let her witness her little army disintegrate first. After school, Maya's group had only just begun their training session. Behind the gym, when Principal Anderson showed up with 2 security guards, this assembly is illegal. Anderson declared you're all to break it up. Right now, we're not doing anything illegal, Mia said. We're just discussing reports. Suggest you've been instructing students to fight, that is planning violence on school property. Mia could feel anger welling up in her chest. What about Derek hiring football players to come after us? Where's the punishment? I don't know what you're talking about. Derek Mitchell hasn't been in any trouble since your unwarranted assault on him. This is ridiculous, Emma said. Anderson turned to her Miss Rodriguez. Your parents were called today regarding your fight with another student in the bathroom. One more incident, you'll be suspended. She didn't do anything, Jake protested. Mr. Santos, you're already on thin ice after your morning fight. I think you would keep quiet. As Anderson and the guards departed, Mia's group stood in shocked silence. They're going to cover for him, Ben whispered. No matter what he does, they're going to cover for him. Maya balled her fists. That we cover ourselves? How? Marcus asked. They'll suspend us for breathing incorrectly, but Derek can do what he wants. Maya gazed at her friends. For that was what they become, bound together by common trauma and resolve. Her father's words came back to her. Sometimes you have to battle the same fight twice before people get it that you're serious. We make it impossible to ignore, she said quietly. We make it so huge, so public that they can't sweep it under the rug anymore. What are you thinking? Jake asked. Mia's smile was knife-sharp. War Tuesday. After school, Maya stood in front of 23 students in the empty maintenance shed behind the football field. Word had spread through networks of the outcasts, the bullied, forgotten. They discovered a new gathering spot after being suspended from school grounds. I know you're all scared. Maya started, her voice ringing out over the crowded room. I know, because I was scared of Derek, scared of his friends, scared of a system that protects predators and punishes victims. The crowd was quiet. Some sat on overturned boxes, others leaned against rusty machines, all of them carrying the invisible wounds of Derek's terror. But yesterday something broke. Jake stood up to him. Emma stood up to him. They didn't back down. Bullies who believed they ruled the school. Maya's voice became louder. And you know what happened. The bullies got hurt. The bullies got afraid for the first time in years. They experienced what we've been living every single day. What if they expel us? Ben asked, his voice little more than a whisper. What if they don't? Maya fired back. What if we keep fighting back until we graduate? What becomes of the children who come behind us? Do we simply abandon them to suffer like we did? Silence. Down in the shed, Maya could see the struggle within every face, the battle between fear and hope, between self-preservation and justice. My dad used to tell me something, Maya went on. He said sometimes you have to fight the same battle twice before people know you're serious. Well, I'm done fighting alone. We all are. A junior named Terrell, who remained silent until now, joined in. My little sister starts here next year. She's tiny, barely 5 feet tall. If Derek's still here when she gets here, his hands clenched into fists. I can't let that happen. Then don't, Maya said flatly. Help us stop it. How? Emma asked. They've got the administration, they've got their parents' money, they've got everything. They don't have numbers, Jake said, standing up. There are more of us than there are of them. There always have been. Maya nodded. The only reason Derek has power is because we gave it to him, because we fled when he arrived, because we endured in pain, because we let him pick us off individually. She made her way to the center of the group. No more from here on out. When Derek or his buddies come near any of us, we don't flee, we don't hide, we stand, and we fight back. What if somebody gets really hurt? A sophomore girl questioned. Maya's face grew stern. People are already getting hurt on a daily basis. The difference now is Derek's going to get hurt too. Across town, Derek sat on his bedroom floor nursing a bag of ice against his groin while his dad paced angrily. This is getting out of control. Robert Mitchell stated first. That Johnson girl attacks you now. Other students become aggressive. The school needs to crack down harder. It's okay, Dad, I can deal with a few losers. This isn't about what you can deal with. This is about respect, about maintaining order. Robert ceased pacing and regarded his son. Perhaps it was time to call in the police, charge some of these kids. The assault, Derek thought this over. The vision of watching Maya be taken away in handcuffs had strong appeal, but something about it seemed like surrender. Like he couldn't win his own fights. Not yet, Derek instructed. Give me a couple of days back. The shed, Maya was finishing her speech. I won't lie to you, this is going to get worse. Before it gets better, they're going to try to break us, to make us afraid again. Some of you may get suspended or expelled. Some of you may get hurt. The group looked at each other nervously, but no one left. But here's the thing that I know for sure. Maya went on, her voice growing more passionate. We're already hurt. We're already broken. We're already afraid. The only difference is now we're going to make. Feel it too. She scanned the room, looking each person in the eye. Anyone wants to leave may leave immediately. No judgment, no hard feelings. But if you remain, you're in this. We look after one another. We fight for one another, and we do not give up until Derek and his associates are done with. Bench. Chen pushed himself to standing slowly, his hands trembling, his voice firm. I'm sick of being afraid. One at a time, others rose. Emma, Marcus, Terrell, Jake. Until all 23 students stood. Then let's make them afraid instead, Mia said. As the group broke up into the evening shadows, Maya felt the responsibility of leadership fall upon her shoulders. These were not just fellow victims anymore. They were warriors in a war she begun, and war she was starting to get had casualties. The question was whether she could live with the ones that were arriving Wednesday. It was chaos. Derek's football recruits attacked, first cornering Ben Chen in the bathroom prior to first period, but this time Ben wasn't alone. Marcus and the other students charged through the door just as the attack started. Get off him, Marcus cried, throwing himself at the closest football player. The bathroom was a war zone. Office flew, bodies crashed against tile walls, and the smell of combat filled the hallways. Other kids collected outside, some taping, others sprinting to fetch teachers before security could arrive. 3 football players were down and Ben was standing bloody but triumphant, supported by his friends. What occurred here? Wanted Mr. Walsh, head of security. They jumped us, Marcus gasped, wiping blood from his nose. That's not what I saw, said Ched, the linebacker, trying to get up. These children jumped us out of nowhere. In an hour, 5 members of Maya's crew got suspended, but news of their win spread like wildfire. For the very first time, Derek's crew had lost a fight. During lunch, Derek's table was pretty quiet. His last remaining supporters looked around nervously, like they were waiting for another attack. This is getting out of hand, Tyler grumbled, fiddling with his sandwich. Perhaps we should give them some space for a bit. Back off, Derek snapped, his voice could cut glass. You want to let these losers get the better of us? I'm just saying, perhaps, maybe we let Maya Johnson turn the entire school on us. Derek stood up quickly, his chair scraping on the floor. No, wait, tonight we settle it. Meanwhile, Maya sat with what was left of her group in the library, trying to make sense of what had occurred. 5 suspensions, Emma said softly. Ben, Marcus, Terrell, and till others gone. But it won't, Jake said. Derek's football players got beat up, and now they'll come back twice as hard. Maya said she felt accountable for every bruise, every suspension, every escalation. This is my fault. No, said a new voice. Maya turned to look at Sarah, Emma Reserve Jr. She scarcely knew. This is Derek's fault. It's always been Derek's fault. Sarah sat down at their table uninvited. I've been observing this war from the outside, and I can no longer remain silent. Derek and his clique bullied our friend Jasmine last month, pushed her to tears, forced her to miss school for a week. I should have acted then. Why did you not? Emma asked, not accusatorially, but in genuine curiosity. Same reason everyone else does not. Fear. Sarah's voice grew stronger. Watching you all fight back, seeing Ben stand up to those football players, I realized I'm more scared of keeping quiet than I am of fighting. Maya felt a spark of hope. How many others are like you? Do more than you think. A lot more. That afternoon, Derek mustered his last forces in the parking lot. Word had reached him of Sarah Kim's defection, and he was enraged. They're recruiting faster than we can shut them down, he said to his group of standing troops. Time for a new strategy. What sort of strategy? asked Connor. Derek's smile was cold and computing, the kind that lands Maya Johnson in the hospital. Back at the maintenance shack, Mia's crew had grown to more than 30 students. The bathroom, when had I inspired others to join, but Mia could sense the terror in their eyes. They wanted to battle, but they weren't ready for what Derek was liable to do next. We have to be smarter, Mia instructed them. No more small battles. If we are going to do this, we do it big. What does that mean? Sarah questioned. Maya glanced around at the faces that gazed back at her son with eagerness, with fear, but all trusting in her to guide them safely through this war. Come tomorrow morning, Derek's going to do something. I can sense it, so we'll be ready for him. Maya's voice rang with authority. All of us together, standing in the main hallway where everyone can see. You want us to fight in front of the entire school? Ben's replacement sophomore Alex looked ashen. I want us to win in front of the entire school, Maya amended. I want every student Every teacher, every administrator to notice that Derek Mitchell no longer runs Westfield. Hijack stood up. What if they come with weapons? Maya's face grew dark then. Better be prepared for anything. As the session concluded, Maya felt the familiar burden of responsibility weighing on her. Tomorrow would either end Derek's terror or ruin everything she'd accomplished. Either way, there would be no turning back. Later that evening, Derek made a call that would change everything. Dad, I need to ask you something. It's about that Johnson girl and her crew. Things had become complicated. The war was about to get a lot more than just a school fight, and Maya had no sense of what was about to hit her. Thursday morning dawned like a storm. From Maya arrived at school early, taking up position and getting her core group of friends in place before the majority of students had even made it to school. They'd discussed a straightforward plan: stick together, don't engage, but be prepared for anything. By the time the first bell rang, the atmosphere was charged. Students flowed through the hallways in groups, opting in with their feet. Maya's group had expanded overnight to almost 40 students, while direct salients had signed up graduates and older children who had no right to be on campus at 9:30 a.m. While students were in passing time between the first and second classes, everything came apart at once. It began when Derek's football recruits hassled 3 freshmen who'd been eating with most people at lunch. What should have been another own attack was a match that set the fuse ablaze. Get off them, Sarah Kim yelled from the other side of the hall. Suddenly everyone was in motion. Maya's crew rushed to defend the freshmen, while Derek's supporters headed to block them. In seconds, the main hallway became absolute pandemonium. Bodies crashed into lockers, books went flying through the air, and shouting resounded off walls. Students not directly involved crammed against the doorways to classrooms, some shrieking, others pulling out phones to document. Maya fought to seniors simultaneously, using the close quarters of the hallway to her benefit. She kicked one of them into the trophy case, and glass shattered on the floor before she spun to land an elbow to the on the other. Across the hall, Jake was struggling with Tyler as Emma and 3 others had Brittany against the wall. The cheerleader was biting and scratching like a wild creature, yelling obscenities that would have her expelled were anyone charged actually bothered. This is crazy, Ben yelled above the commotion as he dodged a loud textbook. More students were coming out of classrooms, some to participate in the fight, others to observe. The brawl was escalating beyond the initial participants as spectators got drawn into the fighting. Derek Emerget through the crowd, his expression twisted in anger. Maya, this is over. But before he could get to her, a fire alarm started wailing. Someone had yanked on it in the melee, and now sprinklers were triggering all over the building. Water poured down on the battling students, slicking the floors and turning them into a hazard. Several of them fell hard on the wet towel, but the battling went on and on. Everyone stopped. A teacher's voice penetrated the din, but no one was listening anymore. Maya slipped on the wet floor and fell right away, rolling out of the way of a kick from one of Derek's recruits. She swept his legs and sent him careening into a cluster of lockers. The riot had acquired a life of its own. Students who hadn't been a part of the initial fight were fighting, settling old scores, or simply caught up in the violence. Maya and Derek's carefully drawn battle lines had broken down into raw chaos through the sprinkler rain and shouting. Mia saw Principal Anderson at the end of the hallway with a phone to his ear, his face white as he spoke quickly. Tal Hover was on the other end. We need immediate assistance, she heard him say. Multiple fights, property damage, complete loss of control. Maya knew this was just what Derek's father had been looking for, an excuse to call in outside force to destroy her movement forever. The window broke as someone slammed into it. Glass added to the water on the floor, making footing even more difficult. Several students were bleeding now, although whether from punches or cuts from the broken stuff Mia could not determine. Maya, Jake stood next to her, his shirt ripped and his lips bruised. We have to get out of here. No, Mia yelled back over the commotion. We can't go now. Even as she uttered the words, Maya could see they were losing it. This wasn't the well-drilled rebellion she'd envisioned. It was a fight that was escalating in danger. Minute by minute, Derek pushed his way out of the crowd. Once again, water running down his face, his eyes crazed with something between rage and terror. Look what you've done, he yelled at Maya. You've ruined everything. I've revealed everything. Maya yelled back around them. The riot kept building. More windows, shattered lockers ripped open, and the sprinkler system was filling the whole first floor. The sound of sirens were audible in the distance. Getting louder, Maya gazed around at the destruction. She'd helped cause students fighting, bleeding, screaming, water everywhere. Glass crunching beneath her feet. This wasn't justice, this wasn't victory. This was just what Derek's father would need to justify whatever he had done. But it was too late to turn back now. The war had escalated out of everyone's control, and the actual fight was about to start. The sirens were blurring near. The riot was slowing. As people grew tired, but Maya and Derek were left standing in the middle of the flooded corridor. Other students had run away or fallen against walls, staring through sprinkler rain as the two leaders stood before each other. You and me. Derek gasped, wiping blood from his lips. No friends, no backup, just us. Maya walked around him slowly, her sneakers splashing in the ankle-deep water. Fine by me. They'd been escalating to this point for weeks. All the harassment, the humiliation, the violence had built up to this last showdown surrounding them. The shattered glass and knocked over lockers provided an arena of desolation. Derek launched the initial punch, a wild haymaker, one which Maya easily dodged. His boxing lessons hadn't helped him prepare to fight in water while fatigued from a riot. Maya returned with a quick jab to his ribcage, then added a knee strike to his stomach. Derek doubled over, struggling. Had enough? Maya inquired. Just getting started. Derek wheezed and charged forward, grabbing Maya around the waist. They crashed hard into the flooded hall, Derek's bulk pinning Maya under the water. She fought against his hold, feeling a panic growing as water filled her mouth and nostrils. Maya shoved her elbow into Derek's kidney, and he had to let her go. She rolled away and surfaced, coughing, water pouring from her hair. You think you're so tough? Derek was standing again, his face contorted with anger. You think you can just come to my school and change everything? It's not your school. Maya retorted. It's not your kingdom. You're just another bully. Who's going to get what's coming to him? Derek attacked once more, but this time Maya was prepared. She dodged and turned his momentum around on him, sending him smashing into the lockers. The sound of the crash resonated through the hallway. In the meantime, outside, the school police cars circled the building, officers in riot gear ready to enter. But they were not alone. Coming to news vans rolled up as reporters heard about a huge brawl at Westfield High. Parents were racing towards the school after getting emergency calls, and amongst them Robert Mitchell sat in his Mercedes with an appreciative smile on his face as he chatted on his phone. Yes, it's just what we planned, he said to the voice at the other end. Gang violence, property destruction, total breakdown of order. Maya Johnson has made a peaceful school a war zone. Robert wasn't the sole parent phoning. Lisa Johnson was speeding towards the school, her hands trembling as she rang her husband's number. Marcus, something has occurred at my school. There has been a fight, a big one. The police are here. I'm coming, was Marcus' voice over the speaker. Back inside, Maya and Derek continued their savage fight. Derek had delivered several good blows and was left. I was swelling shut, but Derek wasn't doing much better. His nose was obviously broken. He was guarding his right side, where Maya had punched him again and again in his ribs. You destroyed everything, Derek yelled as he hurled another wild punch. The school was perfect before you arrived here. Maya parried the punch and punched Derek in the solar plexus. Perfect for whom? Perfect for you and your buddies, while everybody else suffered. Derek stumbled back, his breathing strained. My family built this property. We made it what it is. You made it a nightmare, Maya declared, on him, for children like Jake, like Emma, like Ben. You made their lives hell because you could, because they deserved it. Derek's voice shook with desperation. Because that's how the world works. Some people matter, some people don't. Maya's second punch landed Derek squarely in the jaw, the same place she had struck him weeks earlier. This time, Derek remained on the ground, blood collecting below his face. In the water, the thudding of heavy boots came from school entrance. The police had arrived, all on the floor, hands behind your heads. The orders thundered through the hallways as officers in riot gear poured into the building. Maya gazed down at Derek's unconscious body, then at the chaos surrounding her. Shattered glass, flooded floor, students scattered belongings, students pushed against the walls. Fear in their eyes, she'd emerged victorious, but at what expense? Maya Johnson, a voice cutting through the melee. Step away from the victim and get Now, as Maya raised her hand slowly, she saw something. That dropped her heart to her stomach. Derek's father stood behind the police officers, pointing straight at her. "That's her," Robert Mitchell said to the lead officer. "That's the gang leader who coordinated all this violence." Maya knew she'd walked right into their trap. The riot, the devastation, Derek lying on the ground unconscious, it all made her the aggressor, the violent offender who terrorized a peaceful school. But as handcuffs clicked into place around her, Maya heard something that gave her hope. Student voices, dozens of them all repeating the same thing. She was defending herself. Derek initiated it. He's bullied people for years. The truth was finally emerging even as Maya was being hauled. Wait, the question was whether anyone in power would listen. Handcuffs dug into Maya's wrists as officers escorted her down the flooded corridor of Westfield High. Around her lay the riot's aftermath. Broken glass crunched beneath their feet, water dripped from busted ceiling tiles, and students leaned against doorways. The classrooms gazed after her perp walk with faces that ranged from shock to admiration. Maya, don't respond anything." The voice rang out over the commotion. Her father, Marcus Johnson, was fighting his way through the cluster of police officers and paramedics. "Don't respond any questions without a lawyer, sir." "Step back," an officer shouted. But Marcus continued to move forward. "That's my daughter. I have the right to talk to my daughter." Maya turned her head, water still running from her hair, her left eye swollen, almost closed. "Dad, baby girl, look at me." Marcus's voice didn't waver. "Even with all the commotion around them, you did what you did. You hear me? You defended yourself. Your friend," she harassed several students. Detective Reynolds cut in, referring to his notes. "This sounds like gang activity to me." "Gang activity?" Marcus's voice grew angry. "My daughter fighting back against harassment is gang activity. Behind." Hendrick was being rolled onto a stretcher, remains unconscious. Robert Mitchell followed the paramedics alongside his pricey suit. Mysteriously undamaged, Officer Roberts shouted, "I want to charge full assault battery inciting a riot. That girl is trouble." Marcus spun around Robert, his fists balled. "Your son touched my daughter. He's been bothering her for weeks, not what the witnesses reported." Robert said calmly, "All I see is your daughter standing over my unconscious son." "It's all right," Maya said softly. "I'm okay." Marcus gazed at his daughter, wet, bruised, handcuffed, standing firm, but in her eyes he recognized the same resolve he'd instilled in their backyard training drills. "Remember what I used to say about going through the same fight twice?" Marcus stated as the officers were about to take her away. "Yeah, this is the second fight, and this time the entire world's watching." As they walked through the school, Maya observed the reactions of other students. Some of Derek's friends looked pleased, whispering to each other about her arrest, but others sure people saw with tears in their eyes, and phones in their hands recording. Jake Santos broke through a crowd of students and ran alongside her. "Maya, we captured video of everything, the entire fight. Derek throwing the first punch, the whole thing." "Kid, get back," an officer growled. "No, you don't get it," Jake continued. "We have evidence. She was defending herself." "Jake, watch out," Mia shouted over her shoulder. "Don't get arrested." Emma Rodriguez was sobbing as Maya held her phone high to take video. "We're going to make this right. Everyone's going to find out the truth." Outside of school, news vans were already converging. The tale of a huge brawl at a suburban high school was circulating quickly, particularly with cell phone footage posting on social media. In the moment, Maya's mom, Lisa, made her way through the throng of reporters and bystanders. "Maya, baby, are you all right?" "I'm okay, Mom," Maya replied, despite her puffy eye, however, that told a different story. "This is harassment," Lisa bellowed at the officers. "Where were you when her son was assaulting my daughter?" Detective Reynolds stopped by the police car. "Ma'am, your daughter started a riot that hurt dozens of students and did tens of thousands of dollars in damage. My daughter protected herself from a predator." Lisa's voice trembled with emotion. "She did what you ought to have done." She stopped him as they approached the patrol car. Maya noticed Principal Anderson standing by the school entrance, speaking frantically into his phone. He glanced over at her for an instant, and Maya noticed something she didn't expect. "Shane Maya Johnson," Detective Reynolds read from his notes as he opened the car door. "You're charged with assault and battery, inciting a riot, and conspiracy to use violence. You have the right to remain silent." Maya hardly listened to the Miranda rights. She was looking at her friends from the car window. Jake mobilizing students to post their videos, Emma coordinating with parents coming and bench Chen limping but standing firm with the group. They were not giving up even with their leader in jail. They were still struggling. As the patrol car drove away from Westfield High, Maya saw something that made her heart swell. Pride students were spilling out of the building, not in hysteria, but in coordinated protest. They linked hands along the sidewalk, holding up their phones, chanting her name. The war was not over, it was just beginning. Marcus Johnson watched his daughter get into the police car, then turned to confront the news cameras that were proliferating by the minute. "My daughter is not a criminal," he said emphatically, his voice ringing out across the parking lot. "She's a hero who stood up to a system that shields bullies and victimizes victims, and we're going to demonstrate it." Battle lines were drawn, and the entire world was watching. The courthouse steps were packed with demonstrators. 3 weeks later, Maya sat in the defendant's chair, looking out the window, as hundreds of students stood with signs displaying justice for Maya and cease enabling bullies. Media coverage had exploded into something she'd never imagined. "Your Honor," District Attorney Rebecca Walsh addressed Judge Martinez, her voice carrying the aura of authority. "Maya Johnson directed and coordinated a criminal conspiracy resulting in a riot inflicting over $50,000 in property damage. She made Westfield High School a battlefield." Maya's attorney, a young public defender named David Chen, Ben's older brother, who'd handled the case, Prono stood to reply, "Your Honor, Maya Johnson is not a criminal. She's a victim who was left to defend herself when every adult authority figure let her down." Judge Martinez, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, glared over her glasses at the crowded courtroom. "This is extremely unusual. I have never seen so much public interest in a juvenile case." The prosecution started their case with Principal Anderson, who stood before him looking ill at ease in his seldom worn suit. "Principal Anderson," DA Walsh started, "can you explain the defendant's conduct since having been transferred to Westfield High?" Maya Johnson was difficult from day one. She had no respect for authority and appeared determined to make trouble. David Chen stood up for cross-examination. "Principal Anderson, how many formal complaints did you get regarding Derek Mitchell's actions towards other students?" Anderson shifted uncomfortably. "I don't remember specific numbers. Let me bring you up to speed." David held up a thick folder. 17 formal complaints in 2 years. "What did you do about the Mitchell family? Was very generous to our school at times. There are complaints exaggerated by students trying to get attention." A murmur of anger ran through the courtroom. Maya saw a number of Derek's previous victims lean forward in their chairs. "So you took Derek Mitchell's word over several victims because he gave money to the school?" Objection. The prosecutor called sustained. Judge Martinez stated, but her look indicated she'd heard enough. The actual bombshell occurred. David Chen put Jake Santos on the witness stand. "Jake, 3 days ago, you learned something about Derek Mitchell's social media profiles. Can you let the court know what you learned?" Jake's hands trembled slightly as he testified, "I learned videos posts that Derek believed he'd erased. They involved him plotting attacks on students, boasting of harassment, and conspiring with his father to cover up." On the courtroom's presentation screen, a video started playing. It depicted Derek and his friends in Derek's bedroom plotting their final attack on Maya's group. "Will make her look like she initiated everything." Derek's voice had echoed through the hushed courtroom. "My dad's already spoken to the police. They'll arrest her and her crew, and everything goes back to the way it was." Gasps had run through the crowd. Robert Mitchell's face had lost its color in the front row, but the evidence wasn't done. Jake had recovered months of deleted files. Derek gloating about breaking into exotic girls' videos of him and his friends harassing students. Even audio of conversations with his dad regarding using police connections to deal with issues. Additionally, David went on, "We have testimony from 47 students recounting years of systematic bullying that school administrators dismissed as they covered each incident. One by one, victims of Derek took the stand. Rodriguez testified about being trapped in bathrooms with teachers passing him by. Ben Chen spoke of being coerced into doing homework at gunpoint, his voice increasing in strength with every sentence. Marcus Washington recounted having his weekly lunch money stolen as administrators hid behind telling him to try being nicer to his bullies. Each step built upon the last, creating a picture of institutional air that extended well beyond one problem student. The break came when Derek himself got up on the stand. His lawyer had warned against it, but Robert Mitchell insisted that his son testify to clear his name. Derek walked to the witness stand with his arm still in a cast, his face exhibiting smudged bruises from Mia's last punch. He'd been coached, obviously speaking slowly and carefully, refusing to make eye contact with Maya. Derek, his attorney, started slowly. Can you tell the court what transpired on the day of the fight? I was just attempting to talk to Maya to try to work things peacefully. She'd been threatening me and my friends for weeks, organizing other students to beat us up. And when you went up to her that day, she turned violent at once, began punching me for no reason. I was just protecting myself. She knocked me out cold. The prosecutor smiled, well pleased with Derek's performance. But in David Chen's cross-examination, Derek's smugness began to shine through his rehearsed answers. Derek, did you inform Maya Johnson you could be her master? Like in the good old days, Derek's lawyer protested, but Derek was already responding. It was only a joke. She was being uptight about everything. A joke? I didn't mean it like that. Some people just don't have a sense of humor. Did you take Maya to her car and make threatening remarks? I was trying to be friendly. She kept saying no. My nice attempts. Did you smack up Maya Johnson's behind in the school parking lot? Derek's lawyer protested again, but Derek's temper was rising. She needed to learn some respect. Girls like her think they can just girls like her. David cut. What do you mean by that? Derek knew better to lead. I mean, I just said, you said black girls. Didn't you? You said girls who won't take your harassment lying down need to learn lessons. That's not what I said, but it's what you meant, just as when you said you were going to break in an exotic animal. Correct? Derek's face grew red. You're taking my words out of context. These are my words, Derek. Your deleted social media messages, your text messages, your own voice on video. David's voice grew. With indignant outrage, you harassed Maya Johnson because she was black, because she was new, and because you thought you could get by with it like you did with dozens of other students. She was the violent one, Derek screamed, letting go of all facade. Calm. She's the one who brought gang violence to our school. Before she arrived, everything was peaceful. Peaceful for who, Derek? Peaceful for you. While you bullied other students, they had it coming. Derek's voice broke with desperation. That's how the world is. Some people matter, and some don't. The courtroom exploded. Judge Martinez banged her gavel over and over, calling for order. Budrick wasn't done. My family constructed this town. We established that school. What it is, some little gang. Anger can't come in and ruin all we did. David Chen let the words linger in the air. Derek's real nature finally out for the world to see when order was reestablished. Judge Martinez's voice sliced through the stillness like a knife. I've heard quite enough. After considering all evidence and testimony, it's apparent that Maya Johnson was defending herself against a history of harassment and assault that school administrators not only ignored, but actively covered up. Her voice bore the burden of justice at last being served. All charges are dismissed against Maya Johnson. The courtroom erupted in applause. Outside, the cheering throng of supporters erupted in triumph, their shouts ringing even through the walls of the courthouse. Judge Martinez wasn't done with it either. Additionally, I'm calling for a complete investigation into the reporting of bullying incidents at Westfield High School. Derek Mitchell will be charged with assault, harassment, and conspiracy, and I'm calling for the state to examine the whole district's procedures regarding student safety. Maya felt tears streaming down her face as her friends, all of them crying and laughing simultaneously, surrounded her, engulfed her in a tight hug, while reporters yelled questions and cameras flashed amid the pandemonium. Maya saw Derek being taken away in handcuffs, his father trudging behind, with his head bent, finally facing the consequences of what they had done. They had won not only the war, court, but something more important. They had changed everything. 6 months later, Maya walked down the halls of Westfield High School, but everything was different. No wanty bullying posters graced the walls. Hotlines were posted prominently, and most importantly, she could sense the change in the atmosphere. Maya Jake Santos ran up to her with a huge smile on his face. Did you hear the news? What news? Derek got sentenced yesterday. 2 years in juvenile hall plus community service when he was out, and his dad lost his seat on the school board. Maya nodded with a complicated mix of satisfaction and sadness. Justice had been done, but she did not take pleasure in Derek's downfall. Only relief that he could no longer harm others. Emma Rodriguez came to Maya's locker, nearly bouncy with enthusiasm. Also, did you hear about Principal Anderson? What about him? He's gone. Forced resignation. And guess who they're getting as interim principal? Emma's smile was contagious. Coach Rivera, she's already putting the new policies in effect. Maya's smile felt real for the first time. As she smiled genuinely, Coach Rivera was one of the only adults who defended her since the start. Seeing her Muay Thai abilities and knowing the context she'd been under as they headed to their first class, Maya caught something that still surprised her. 6 months later, students striding confidently through the halls. No one hugged the walls anymore. No one kept their heads down in fear. The air of fear that Derek, his friends had brought, was gone. Maya Johnson to the principal's office. Please, the same announcement rang out through the hallway, but this time Maya wasn't anxious. These calls had become the new norm since Coach Rivera became principal's office. Maya discovered an unlikely gathering. Coach Rivera sat behind the desk, but she wasn't alone. Bencha was present together with Marcus Washington and a few other students. Maya did not at first recognize Maya. Sit down, Coach Rivera said with a smile. I wanted you to meet some people. The unknown students stood up and introduced themselves. They were from other schools in the state, all facing their own cases of bullying. We heard about what you did here, said a girl named Samantha from a school and are from them. We want to do the same thing at our school, but we need assistance. We need to know how you mobilized everyone. Maya looked around through at the expected faces. During the last months, she'd been getting hundreds of messages from students all over the country, seeking advice, telling their own stories, seeking assistance with their own situations. The very first thing you have to realize, Maya said cautiously, is that what happened, it went very wrong. Before it got right, people got hurt. I got arrested. It was a war, and wars do have casualties, but it worked. Ben said softly. Derek's gone. The administration shifted, and bullying incidents are actually being addressed seriously now. Maya nodded. It worked, but there may have been other ways, better ways. What would you do differently? Marcus asked. Maya considered this question, which she'd been grappling with for months. I'd try harder to work with adults first. I'd document everything better from the start, and I'd try harder to change the system rather than just combat the symptoms. Coach Rivera leaned forward. That's actually why I brought you all together. The district is rolling out a new peer mediation program. They want Maya to assist in its design. You've sort of become an expert on student conflict resolution. Coach Rivera smiled. Your case is being researched by school districts all over the nation. They are interested in learning from what occurred. The meeting lasted another hour, with Maya discussing organization documentation and coalition building as the students from other schools were getting ready to depart. Samantha came up to Maya. Thank you, he said matter-of-factly. You gave us hope once everyone left. Maya was stuck by herself with Coach Rivera. How are you really doing? The coach requested all the attention the speaking demands. The interviews, that's a lot for anybody to deal with. Maya thought about the question sincerely. Some days I feel like I'm a hero. Other days I feel like I just happened to be lucky that things went right. And some days I wonder if I made everything worse for a time. The fact that you doubt yourself evidences wisdom, Coach Rivera said. Heroes in the movies never second-guess themselves. Real heroes always do what happens. Now I graduate in a few months. Now you get to decide what kind of person you want to be from here on out. The Maya Johnson who struggled with Derek, she was needed, but Maya Johnson who stops next Derek, she could be more essential. That night, Maya sat in her backyard with her dad, both of them going through forms in the dimming light. It had become their ritual, a means of staying connected and grounded in all the pandemonium that had ensued after the trial. Dad, Maya asked in a pause, do you think I did the right thing? Marcus wiped sweat from his brow and gazed at his daughter. Baby girl, you did the only thing you could do, and because you did it, hundreds of other children don't have to. Derek's life is destroyed. His friends were expelled. Even some innocent individuals got involved in all of it. Derek destroyed his own life the second he chose other individuals as playthings. Marcus stated assertively, you didn't make that monster, you only refused to let him continue feeding. Maya's phone rang with another message. From a student requesting assistance, she'd gotten thousands of those over the previous months, each one from an individual who'd gained strength from her experience. I think I know what I want to major in college, Maya stated abruptly. What's that? Social work, or perhaps law, something where I can assist in changing systems, rather than merely battling one by one. Marcus smiled. It sounds as though you learned the true lesson. What's that? That the battle never truly ceases, but changes form. As summer arrived, Maya found herself thinking about all that had changed. Derek was serving his sentence and reportedly faring well in counseling, at last addressing attitudes which had turned him into a predator. Principal Anderson had accepted a position in educational consulting, working to get other schools away from making the same mistakes Westfield had. Most of all the students Derek had bullied were flourishing. Jake had been voted student body president. Emma was launching a peer counseling initiative. Ben had discovered his voice and was applying to college debate programs. The effects rippled far outside of Westfield. Maya's tale had brought about policy reforms in school districts across the country. The Maya Johnson Act was making its way through the state legislature, a bill mandating schools to have independent review for bullying complaints and actual consequences for administrators who chose to ignore them on graduation day. Maya was standing at the podium as valedictorian, gazing out at her classmates and their families. When I came to Westfield High 8 months ago, she started, I just wanted to get through school quietly and go on with my life. I never wanted to become the focus of a movement or the face of student activism. He hesitated, spotting Jake and Emma in the stands, both smiling widely. But sometimes life doesn't offer you the option of staying silent. Sometimes doing the right thing is the difficult thing, the frightening thing, the thing that alters the course of everything. Maya's voice became stronger. We discovered that fighting back against bullies isn't all about throwing punches. It's about not accepting injustice as standard. It's about defending people who can't defend themselves, and it's about believing that things could change, even when the entire system appears to be in place to stop it. The audience applauded. As Maya finished speaking, in the sea of faces, she spotted her parents, smiling proudly. Coach Rivera, with a nod of approval. Dozens of students whose lives had been altered by the past year's happenings. As Maya made her way across the stage to accept her diploma, she thought about Derek, hoping he was forging his own way to redemption. She thought about all those students who reached out for assistance and the burden she felt to keep fighting for them. But most of all, she thought about the future college, law school, and a lifetime of effort to make sure that whatever transpired at Westfield would never happen again. The war was over, but the real work had only just begun. I hope you liked the story. Please like the video and subscribe so that you do not miss the next one. Meanwhile, I have personally selected the stories for you which I feel that you will enjoy. Have a great day.